hear the sleigh bells jingle, jing, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling. They set your heart a tingle, jing, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling. I love to hear our laughter mingle, ah-ha, ho-ho, gliding through the snow. Jing, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling. The bells that got the snowflakes dancing, jing, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling. Old Dobbin's even prancing, jing, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling, jing-a-ling. The night is made for sweet romancing, ha-ha, ho-ho, through the snow we go. Through a winter fairyland we go a-gliding, in a cotton candy land of frozen charms. And the way the sleigh is slipping and a-sliding brings you sliding even closer in my arms. Can't you hear the sleigh bells asking why we're single, as we fly across the snowy hills and dales? And we're happy 'cause the sleigh bells seem to jingle in the winter fairyland like wedding bells. Jing, jingle, jing, jing, jing. Love to hear the sleigh bells jingle. Jing, jingle, jing, jing, jing. How it sets your heart a jingle. Jing, jingle, jing, jing, jing. Love to hear our laughter mingle. Ah-ha, ho-ho, gliding through the snow. Jing, 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 jingling, jing. Bells got the snowflakes dancing. Jing, 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 jingling, jing. Mr. Dobbin's prancing. Jing, 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 jingling, jing. Nights are made for sweet romancing. Ah-ha, ho-ho, through the snow we go. Jing, jingling, jingling, jingling. I love to hear our laughter mingle. Ah-ha, ho-ho, through the snow we go. Jing, jingling, 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 jingling.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this sample phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. So I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carols, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasures, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new year, lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la.
Frosted window panes, candles gleaming inside, painted candy canes on the tree. Santa's on his way, he's filled his sleigh with things for you and for me. It's that time of year when the world falls in love. Every song you hear seems to say Merry Christmas. May your New Year dreams come true. Song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same thing too. It's that time of year when the world falls in love. Every song you hear seems to say Merry Christmas. May your New Year dreams come true. And this song of mine in 3/4 time wishes you and yours the same thing too.
I'd like to call to order the December 7th, 2020 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. My name is Zachary Greco, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will then present the staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes go by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will be allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed at the public hearing, or once the public hearing is closed, will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based upon the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review comments, HPDRC, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence all cell phones. At this point, I'm going to ask my commissioners, starting on my right, to introduce themselves.
That's me. Ashley DeKivas, I'm an attorney.
Susan Klaus-Smith, architect.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Stephen Sutton, architect.
We're also joined here tonight by city staff, Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Elaine Lunn, Beverly Jusak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. First order of business, would one of my fellow commissioners like to make a motion to put the November 2nd and November 4th meeting minutes into record?
I move to approve the November 2nd and November 4th meeting minutes.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager, with a couple announcements. I do have the ARC staff reviews for November, which we'll submit into the record. Secondly, we will be holding our second portion of the application cycle this Wednesday, December 9th. So we will have the agenda available for you for that evening. I believe we have 4 cases on that evening. Third, I did want to, with the help of some slides, update you on one of our incentive programs. The Interstate Historic Preservation Trust Fund, which is a funding incentive that the staff oversees for the city, is offering application cycles. The grant program has a current application cycle of January 20th, 2021. That's kind of difficult to say. We have a new year approaching here, though, very quickly. The grant program is an incentive for homeowner-occupied properties in Ybor City, West Tampa, and the Tampa Heights Local Historic and National Register districts. There are income eligibility requirements for that particular program, which anyone who's interested in the program can contact our office. I have the contact information at the end of the slideshow. But we do have 2 cycles a year for this particular program, and January will be our first cycle for next year. Within that program, there's quite a few eligible scopes of work, but generally it's structural stabilization, restoration of architectural details, and some soft cost funding as well. This was a project in the Ybor City National Register District that repaired this home's historic windows. And then we do have a low-interest loan program for the same National Register districts. That's Ybor City, West Tampa, and Tampa Heights. And the application cycle for this program is January 27th next month. There's an expanded scope of work that allows not only exterior work but interior work for the loan program. This was a project in Tampa Heights that was severely deteriorated, and this program does act as a funding resource for projects that may not be able to receive conventional funding. That's really what the impetus was for us to create the program. And you can see this was a tremendously deteriorated structure that couldn't receive traditional funding and was able to be restored utilizing our program, and a lot of great effort by the property owner, obviously. It was an entire structural stabilization restoration project of the exterior and interior. And for information on both these programs or any of the programs that we have, our website is a great resource at tampagov.net, and you have the entire line there to get to the trust fund programs. Or if you care to, you can contact one of our staff at 813-274-3100, option 3, which is the link to our staff division on North Boulevard. Thank you, and we're happy to offer that program to assist in the restoration of some of our important structures in the city. With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the ex parte and conflict of interest disclosure, and our legal counsel will lead that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. At this time, will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
Not
Yes.
I.
Sorry. Commissioner DeCubis, can you, which case are you referring to?
ARC 20-446.
And were you able to fill out the relevant form regarding your conflict of interest?
Yes, I did.
And okay, and then just for the record, I did hand that to Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any conflicts of, okay, thank you.
No.
Additionally, will the commissioners please state whether or not they have any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
No.
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 Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We have no continuations on this evening's agenda, so we'll move to the swearing. Anyone in the audience, including staff, who is going to be presenting or giving testimony at this evening's hearing, please stand and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, I think we're ready for our first case.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. See, as we begin this evening, I believe the first item on the agenda tonight was incomplete, so we will not be hearing that item this evening. Be moving on to ARC 20-364 at 310 East Ross Avenue. This property is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District, fairly close to the south end of the district. It's shown here in green on the district map. This is an aerial view of the subject site outlined in green. You can see it's on a vacant site. It's on the north side of Ross Avenue between Morgan Street here and Jefferson Street. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of the subject site, and I believe this sheet was added in 1928. See if I can zoom in on this a little bit for you. Maybe not. What's kind of interesting about this is there was a building on the site at the time. Need to use my magnifying glass here. It was a two-story house with a two-story front porch, a residence. You'll note that it is fairly close to the front yard there. At this time, we didn't have the setbacks that our zoning categories do today, so the pattern along the block can be sometimes a little irregular. This is looking north at the subject site from Ross Avenue. And this is the site directly to the east, the adjacent site, also vacant. Just to the west, this is 308 East Ross Avenue. This was constructed in the 1990s before the Tampa Heights Historic District was adopted by the city of Tampa. This is looking south from the subject site across Ross Avenue. In this photo, we are looking east towards Jefferson Street. So the subject site would be to your left. And here we are looking west toward Morgan Street. So the subject site would be to your right. You can see the adjacent property's driveway here. Then moving around to the alley, we're looking south at the subject site from the alley here. This is looking from the alley at the adjacent properties to the west. So you can see the rear of the house at 308 East Ross Avenue, the contributing structure at 306 Ross, and the contributing structure at 304 Ross. Here we are looking across the alley to the north. This is just the rear of the property across the alley. And we have a couple of views along the alley, this one looking west toward Morgan Street. And then looking east toward Jefferson Street. And I wanted to show you also, I should have had a picture of this lovely little bungalow here as well. This would be the property at 306 East Ross Avenue, this historic bungalow here. And then as we move closer to Morgan Street, there's a two-story apartment building at the end of this, closer to the end of the street. There's also a property here that faces Morgan Street, but I wanted to show you that for some reference that might come up a bit later. So with that, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and begin his presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roger Gurunka, architect, and I'm here representing Aquarius Holding for 310 East Ross Avenue. So the first thing I would like to do is sort of give you my understanding of how I've come upon this design. The historic Tampa Heights District is foremost an architecturally diverse neighborhood. It is a rich combination of diverse building types, styles, massing, and scale, and frequently juxtaposed to one another. This is the indisputable character of this neighborhood. And here, can we have the, yes, thank you. Just to show you quickly, some of these anomalies that do not fit into the current zoning or the, yes, the formula zoning. So here you can see the juxtaposition of what used to be a dry goods store.
Could you please use the microphone? Thank you.
Used to be a dry goods store, commercial structure next to a bungalow. Interestingly, these buildings that seem somewhat incompatible were very much built within the same time frame. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't as if all of a sudden along came the commercial structure. This is not the Tampa Heights, but it is one of our historic neighborhoods, and you can see how this building sits right on the sidewalk. And then back in Tampa Heights, we have this wonderful 1884 grocery store, which is now a...
Could you either, I'm sorry to interrupt, could you slide the photo down, or could we have the camera zoom out? So we can see
Yes,
more?
okay.
Thank you.
This is Lee's Grocery, and it was from 1884 till 2010. A grocery store is now a beer and wine and pizza establishment. This is typical, where in the middle of a residential area, you will have a commercial string of stores. This is a historic structure. And even within the last 60 or 70 years, this is a former gas station, a mid-century modern gas station, which replaced one of the traditional historic wooden homes and is now itself become a contributing structure. This is, again, no longer a gas station, but a beer and wine restaurant. Close to Tampa Heights in Ybor, this is another example of really of a charmer. The bottom needs help, but of a charmer that sits right on the sidewalk, and the balcony protrudes over the sidewalk. In the subject block, we have the Medulla building, which sits on two property lines and is
We can't see
just
that.
a few feet.
Sir, we can't see that. Thank you.
This is the north side of the building, and the south side of the building is 5 feet 8 from the sidewalk, with an overhanging balcony that is 6 inches from the sidewalk. While there is some repetition of mass, scale, and site placement, there are numerous examples of these urban-defining features being interrupted by anomalies. Anomalies that give historic districts their charm, quirkiness, and unique character, the very richness and texture that we all love. This character developed largely because the districts were built prior to formula zoning, which wasn't introduced until the 1980s, 100 years after the creation of Tampa Heights. It was in the 1980s, during the building of suburban Carrollwood, that the historic districts were saddled with formula zoning. Formula zoning homogenizes, which is the antithesis of the flavor and attraction of our historic districts. The districts do not conform to formula zoning, and every effort should be made to encourage historic district infill that aspires to the edge of what legally is possible to be supported. By not doing so, the districts will sink into a Disneyland dreariness. It is the purpose of a historic district to act as a type of, the question I ask you, is it the purpose of a historic district to act as a type of polyurethane to freeze over a neighborhood like a prehistoric insect caught in resin? I don't believe so. All historic neighborhoods change and grow and evolve over time. If preservation is going to be supported by the populist, it must be a living part of the urban growth. So going on, Tampa Heights, North Franklin Street, was always a part of downtown Tampa, and Tampa Heights was always a part of the city's urban growth center, not a suburb, but the urban growth center. With the development today of the Heights Union, the Armature Works, escalating property appreciation has caused the pressures of urban growth to accelerate and affect Tampa Heights and the properties. This will continue, probably will be experienced, as it has also in Hyde Park, in North Ybor and in our other districts as well. The question here is how to accommodate multifamily housing in a historic district. This is the really prescient question, especially as large areas of vacant properties in the Tampa Heights district are zoned for multifamily. Do we try to stop it? It is stop that growth or stop that development. It is totally unrealistic to hope that downzoning will occur. Do we try to hide multifamily housing behind the paradigm of single-family architecture, like this? Or do we smother it with cliches attributed to quaint single-family architectural styles from the past? Like this, which was a proposal for Tampa Heights. So the question really is one that hasn't been solved and faces us all. As a recipient of several awards from the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation, specifically in the arena of modern infill in historic districts, also the same from Tampa Hillsborough Planning Commission, I would categorically say no to both. That is, no to both trying to squash multifamily into what appears to be a single-family house, and I would say no to coating a building with single-family cliches to try to make it fit into the neighborhood. I believe we need to develop several new building types, all of which embrace 21st century urban growth, while simultaneously recalling historic traditions relevant to that specific district. Naturally, we must have a solid understanding of what those traditions were. It is only based on this that a new paradigm can be established. For the historic precedent, I was drawn to the wonderful example that the Sanctuary Loft Apartments provides. Also, more specifically, to the wonderful facade of the Tampa Heights Hospital, once situated on 7th and Morgan Streets. Both buildings belong to what the McAllisters referred to as eclectic colonial revival style. This was a style that once flourished in Tampa Heights, both as luxury grand residences as well as non-residential buildings. For translation into a modern building, and that is what I am trying to do here, developing a building that at first glance reads as a modern building, but is comfortable and at home and supportive of the qualities of the historic district. A friend of mine commented, how can you choose a historic precedent for a residential building from a non-residential historic precedent? I thought about it and then offered this example to him, and that is the multitude of Mediterranean revival gas stations that dotted Tampa's landscape. In Tampa Heights, there was even a Tudor-style gas station. Now, this is a fact. So, does the fact that these buildings were gas stations disqualify Mediterranean revival or Tudor revival as a valid residential genre? No, I don't think so. Style has little to do with usage. Style is a design philosophy. It serves as a guidebook when designing any building, regardless of the usage. This style, eclectic colonial revival, was well established in the Tampa Heights Historic District, both as luxury residential and as the more streamlined non-residential. I'm going to have to put the microphone down to show some of these photographs. This is the hospital, the Tampa Heights Hospital, and this is the building that I'm using as my historic precedent. Again, I'm not trying to copy this building. I'm trying to create a modern building, a modern structure that everyone can look at and immediately know that it's a new building, but a building that has a connection to the historic buildings of the past, as well as to some of the detailing, massing, and scale. Almost all of the architectural styles in Tampa Heights, just like the district's first inhabitants, originated from somewhere outside of Florida. In McAllister's book, they have created a subcategory of eclectic colonial revival that they refer to as three-story eclectic colonial revival. These were semi-attached residences and small three-story apartment buildings that hailed from the 1880s to the early 1900s. The same significant time period as the Tampa Heights Historic District itself. Although the photos that they provide are not located in Tampa, they belong to the same eclectic colonial revival movement which we had here. As the style is well established, the movement is well established in Tampa Heights. By inference, I give this as further validation for our three-story townhouse project. It may be a form from outside of Florida, but so are almost all of the established historic precedents in our district. This is an example of the residential eclectic colonial, and then here are some examples of the three-story. Now, we have in Tampa Heights if I can find them. Here. A multitude of these. And you see the comparison. You can see for yourself on your left the Sunday school at the Tyler Baptist Church, which is now the Sanctuary Apartments, and the three-story subcategory eclectic colonial revival that is mentioned in McAllister. This is on Central, and this is an example of the eclectic colonial. This also is an example of height. The municipal code limits the height of an RM24 building to 30 feet. We, in our design, have accomplished that. The building here is an example of one of many of the old luxury homes that far exceeded 30 feet in height. This one in particular is 400 Palm Avenue. And from the ground to the first floor is 4 feet. This home, now an office, but originally a residence, this home had a basement. So you had 4 feet from the grade to the first floor. It had a 10-foot-4 interior ceiling. Then it had at least 1 foot of construction, a 9-foot-4 second floor, another at least 12 inches, if not 14, of construction, and then an 8-foot third level with a conical roof over that 8 foot. The conical roof, as you can see here, is at least 4 feet. So you add 4 and 8 and 1 and 9 and 1 and 10 and 4, and you are far exceeding the height of the building that we are proposing. Another example. And here is even a secondary structure which exceeds the 15-foot, which is the maximum allowable height for a secondary structure. And our building, secondary, which has a secondary structure, conforms to the 15-foot. Now, here you can see that 400 Palm next to the bungalow right next door. And yes, it dwarfs it. There probably, maybe it's 10 years, 15 years at the most between the construction of one and the other.
Excuse me,
But
sir.
this is,
Excuse me, sir. I just wanted you to keep in mind, you only have 10 minutes left in your presentation.
okay. This is typical of our historic district. Here's another and another representing those heights. So let's get on then with the elevations. I think you all have the elevations. We'll start with the site plan. So I thought we'd start with the site plan. Okay, the site plan parking, which I am not happy with, was approved by zoning, and this was the reason why this project was not continued 2 months ago, because of the need for guest parking. But we have the guest parking, the garages, and everything meets code. And I am asking for 2 design exceptions here. The first is a averaging of the front yard, and here you can see the block with the existing homes. There are only four actually, properties that officially face Ross on this side of the street. This building is the Medulla secondary structure, and even though it has a door on this side here, it does belong address-wise to Morgan Street. This building over here belongs to Jefferson. This is an empty lot. This is an empty lot. So we have two buildings. This one is a historic contributing structure. It is 15 feet from the sidewalk. This is another contributing structure. No, this is a non-contributing structure. This was one of the little houses that Tampa Preservation built in the 90s. It's 14 feet from the street. And of course, because of the door and the architectural entrance being on this side, I've included this. It is 5'8". The average is actually 11. We're asking for 14, so we line up with the house right next door.
If I may, just for a moment, Mr. Grunke, just to clarify, commissioners, you're not reviewing the design exceptions at this hearing this evening. These are submitted through the Land Development Coordination Division and evaluated in accordance with the code.
Okay, well, I'll skip that whole thing then. Let's go to the elevations. Or first, the wall section. Thank you. So those are our heights and the details. The front elevation, let's see here. This is the front elevation. This is an open porch. This is the second floor. This building, in the eclectic style, uses the piano nobile idea where the main floor is what we would call the second floor. Is very similar to 400 Palm. And then our third floor. This second floor balcony has a trellis over it. This is a detail of the trellis structure. This is a detail through that balcony. Well, I wanted to show you the side elevation, and both side elevations are identical, but for whatever reason, it's lost in the shuffle here. I believe you have the drawings, so you should be able to reference that through your own packet. Oh, here's the side. It was sticking to the. All right, so this is the side elevation. This is an indent in the building, 9-foot indention into the side of the building, which helps control the mass of the building, breaking the building into, visually into two buildings rather than one solid mass. The rear. looks like this. There is a 5-foot separation between the primary building and the secondary building. There's a masonry wall between the units, and there is a bridge, poured concrete bridge from the second level over to the roof of the garage. And let's see, the last would be the elevation from the alley where you face the garages. So, moving on to materials. This is an example of the company that we would use for the garage doors, but it would be as drawn on the rear elevation. So example light fixtures. I'm not saying these are the light fixtures we're going to use, but we will use something that is very simple and timeless. This is a trellis that I did in a garden, and it'll be similar to what we'll have on the second level. Although this is a funny little garage, the rain scuppers and the downspouts are very nice, and this is the style that we will use. The front porch will have cast stone tiles, and this is an example of that. These are examples of, there are 2 bands that run around the building. They're decorative, and they are referential to the historic past. They are cast stone. Just an example. The windows are modern vinyl windows. Are not sure whether we'll be using Simonton's or MI or possibly Geldwin, but they will be vinyl. This is an example of the stucco texture. And an important...
Excuse me, sir. Fortunately, your time is up for your presentation. Okay.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. Staff found that this application was consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. There were a few items that I don't think the applicant had a chance to get to yet, finishing up the material palette there. I also had just some basic site plan questions about the mechanical units and the material and height of the fencing. Additionally, I did ask that the applicant provide the information about the front yard setbacks and the other buildings along the block to show the rhythm along that block and to demonstrate that his project would be consistent with that. This This particular item is approved by staff through the Planning and Zoning Division as a design exception. However, it is, of course, goes hand in hand with your approval here tonight. So I believe the design exception also includes a request for the detached garage, which is a particular condition regarding the semi-detached two-unit houses, single-family houses, that they have an integrated parking space, which is not consistent with the pattern that we see in the historic districts. So my recommendation that if you do move to approve this application is that you do make it conditional upon the approval of the design exception. And with that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the public hearing to any public comment. Okay, seeing none, the commissioners will now begin asking questions. Commissioner would like to begin? Commissioner Sutton?
I'll hold for the moment.
Okay. Commissioner Boyd?
Briefly, could you please show the location of your mechanical units on the site plan?
Yes. I believe I uploaded them onto Excel. I know that I drew them. This one does not have them drawn. Oh, yes, it does. This one does have it on here. So this is the front of the building. This is the alley. And here are the mechanical units for this unit, and on this side for this unit. They conform to the 3-foot setback from the property line. We have 7-foot setback from the building, so there's plenty of space for mechanical units.
Sure.
We may choose to put the units on the roof, but that depends upon the total air conditioning package, which hasn't been set yet.
And we'll just review what you've presented today. That's fine. Can you indicate the height and material of the fence shown on your site plan?
Yes. This is a vinyl fence which runs down the entire west side of the property from the front facade of the neighbor's building to the alley. This is the neighbor's fence. It happens to be on my client's property by maybe 10 inches or so, but this will remain. What we will do is, here in the front, connect our facade, probably set it back a little bit, to the vinyl fence with a wooden fence and gate. And then we will also close off this area between the rear facade of the garage to the vinyl fence so that we have security in this area. On the other unit, we'll run a wooden fence from the rear facade of the primary structure to the property line and down to the front facade of the secondary structure and across with a gate. Our gates and fences will be wood.
You don't have a design proposal or a proposed height today?
6 foot.
Have you selected your roof material?
The roof is not seen because the roof is behind the parapet. It'll be a modified bitumen roof.
Have you selected your doors?
Yes, pretty much. This is the front door, whether it is a 2-panel door as shown here or multiple panels. My client wants to choose at a later date. However, it will be a solid core wood panel door. The doors on the rear of the building will be vinyl because they do not have weather protection as the front doors do.
Do you have exterior door hardware selected?
Excuse me?
Exterior door hardware, do you have that
Yes.
selected?
This is for the main entrance. And then this is for the rear, only both would be in the oil rub bronze.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clausmith?
I'd like to go back to the discussion that you had made earlier about the front yard setbacks. There was an additional question about those, about them in terms of their heights, the primary structure's heights, and you didn't touch on that. So I'd love to give you an opportunity here to talk about the actual heights of the properties that also are along that edge.
Yes. So these are the three buildings which face the sidewalk on our side of Ross. This structure is immediately next door. This is a non-contributing structure. This was built by Tampa Preservation. I'm sure that within time, because of the escalating property values, this building will be replaced. This building is next door. We have two photographs, here and here. And in both cases, you can see the relationship to the Medulla cottage. Secondary, let's just call it a secondary structure. My building design of 2910 is higher than both of these, but these are, the one is a one-story structure, and the one immediately next door is, insignificant two-story. But this is no different than what we saw on Palm, and I showed you that in my presentation with the 400 Palm eclectic colonial revival next door, towering over the one-story bungalow.
Okay, thank you. I did have another question for you.
We have to, Ms. Smith, to the east of us is an empty lot. So that, I assume that also will be not a one-story cottage.
I just wanted to ask the question about the connector piece and why you felt that was, I know that we aren't reviewing the design acceptance, just trying to understand why that you felt that was a necessary move, because it does, does have some correspondence on the elevation to the sides, so to either side. So just trying to understand why that physical connector in your mind was necessary, and if there was a historic precedent that.
What about the connector?
If you could go to your elevations that show, either one that show the side view.
You're talking about the bridge?
Side elevation. Yeah, so in staff notes, they're calling it a connector, but I think you referred to it as a bridge, and you can just see that component between the secondary structure, the accessory structure, and the primary. why you felt that was necessary, and then also, were there historic precedents within this district or any of the other historic districts?
Well, a covering between the secondary structure and the primary structure is totally allowable within the municipal code and has been done in new construction, residential construction in the Seminole Heights Historic District and other districts. What I did, the only thing that I did differently was make it flat so that people could walk on it from the second floor of the primary residence to the roof of the garage.
Okay.
And you see the wire railing on top of that.
I do, and I have some follow-up questions for you.
Okay?
Okay. Is the intent that the roof of the secondary structure then becomes a livable roof, meaning that it's an outdoor space that the tenants can then use for living, outdoor living?
It is for outdoor living. That's exactly what it's for.
Okay, and then what is that parapet condition then?
3 feet.
3 feet. And then
So you'll walk across the, quote, bridge and step down a couple of steps.
Okay. And then for the railing for that bridge, do you have details or examples of what that
I
would
have
look
an
like?
example here of something similar. And this is, I warn you, this is a commercial. I don't intend to use the commercial one, but this was the easiest one to find. And you see, it's just wires.
So your intent is to use a horizontal wire, not a vertical?
No, to use the vertical. I'm sorry, no, it should be the horizontal. No, you're correct.
So the elevation is
The
not...
elevation needs to be corrected, yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That's all for my questions at this time. Thank you. Commissioner Kukas?
Yes. I had the same questions about the bridge, so I think that was answered. You showed us the front door, correct? Did we see the back door? Or is it the same?
Only in the drawing. Here's the back, both the second floor and the first floor back door. They're single light door, glass doors, vinyl, as I said, because they are unprotected. And they'll be supplied probably by the same window company supplying the windows.
Okay. And the trellis you showed, that's a wooden structure?
Yes.
Okay. I believe that's all the questions I have right now.
Go ahead.
If I may, I'd like you to continue with these elevations, if you don't mind. First and foremost, I have some resolution issues with the presentation that you've made with us this evening. I understand the colonial revival aspect of this forum that you are bringing to us. I also understand the precedence materials that you've brought to us, particularly with respect to more specific Tampa Heights commercial type properties. So to me, the big elephant in the room right now is you have more or less produced a very rigorous living block of a rectangle.
Say that again, please. I'm having difficulty hearing you.
You have produced to us a residential block with a relatively rigorous rectilinear form.
Yes. It's based on the form of the Tampa Heights Hospital, which is that eclectic colonial revival.
Correct. And we can see it in other places throughout the city of Tampa as well.
Yes, correct.
But can you tell us what brought to you the use of an arch-type window in
Yes.
such a rectilinear form, and where that comes from in precedence?
I have I can tell you, and if you want, I can shuffle through and find the photographs. But the second floor of the Sunday school at the sanctuary, Loft Apartments, which is only a block away, does the same thing. Their second floor, that's why I did it. To make the connection between that building and my building. Do you want me to shuffle through and find the...
I would like to see a visual on that,
Okay.
please.
While the applicant is looking for that, I have a question for staff. Since we don't have the code in front of us, I apologize. Do you happen to know, in terms of reference for building height, does that building height, if it delineates by code as 30 feet is the max, does that delineate also the demising wall between the units, or is that only to the roof?
I believe it reads to the roof.
Okay.
I would need to reference the code myself for that, just to make sure about the wall. However, this has been reviewed by our planning and zoning division, and they brought up no objections to that particular item.
Okay, this is hard to see. I only brought 134 photographs and not the 135th, but this is an elevation, this is a rear elevation of the former Sunday school, and every street facade, you can, if we can get the camera to come in close, please. Each one of the windows on both Park as well as Central and on another side have the arched windows. That's exactly where I got the inspiration to put the arch. And they're only on the second floor.
Thank you for that information. Again, let's return to your elevations, if you don't mind. I understand your rear elevation. I understand your side elevations being highly resolved. If we could make note that there's a certain proportion and alignment to all of your fenestration items.
Yes.
Can you explain why on your most primary elevation, your front elevation, why that alignment does not occur?
Why what?
Why the alignment of your fenestration elements does not occur?
I'm sorry, I still haven't heard you. I'm sorry.
Can you tell me why then, on the front of your most important elevation, your front street elevation?
Yes.
Why your fenestration elements do not align?
Well, they do, second and third floor. And the first floor, I'm providing entry, and I just chose to do it this way. This also within the covered porch. So when you read the building, when you're driving by or walking on the sidewalk, what you're going to read is the exterior facade of the porch, and probably won't even see the second floor French doors going out to the second floor because of the trellis over it.
I don't entirely agree with that statement.
Will you present the front elevation during this conversation?
So you can see the windows and the doors are visible through the first floor, and they do line up with those above, but they're not the same. The door both doors are more or less line up with the opening, because that's what you're going to, you're headed towards the door. It's a different usage of the space on the first floor from the space on the second floor. Second floor is one room, third floor is one room. The first floor is one room and a foyer and a hallway.
I have no further question at this time.
Could you please present your wall section real quick?
Sure. I'm not so sure how quickly, though. Here we go.
So,
you want to see, it's not, yeah, okay, there you go.
no, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
So, the height to the top of the roof that we're calling right now, is that to the top of the roof of
2910.
the roof joist? Or is that the top?
No, that's
of-
the roof. There's a parapet around this building, and the parapet,
I understand that.
yeah. So the code reads to the top of the roof. The parapet, you are given, I think, as much as 8 feet. I'm using 3 feet.
I understand that. My question, so the 29 feet, 10 and 5/8 inch, is that going to the top of the joist, which it looks like it's showing here, or is that going to the top of your modified Bittman roof membrane?
I know, I did not calculate the modified bitumen in that.
Okay, so could you theoretically, let's say if your building is roughly 30
feet.
feet wide,
Yeah,
the center of it is probably running down the middle, so that let's say 15 feet, 14 feet. If we're taking that 29 feet, 10, 5/8 inch of a height to that joist at the edge of the building, which you're pulling all your water and shedding your water towards the exterior walls.
right.
But over
It's a short distance.
Correct. But over that 15 feet, you're going to rise enough to where your roof is now higher than the allowed 30 feet?
I calculated the roof joist as not the roof joist, but the plywood finish as the top.
Okay. But your roof would still be higher than,
The roofing would be a little bit more, yes.
Yeah,
At one side, yes.
yeah, so even if you're, let's say that your 29 foot, 10 and 5/8 inch went to the top of the membrane on the edge, as we moved into the center of the building, it would only take roughly about 5.5 inches for that built-up roofing to be over your 30 feet. So do we have a
Well,
building
you
that
have,
does not meet?
at a
well, hold
quarter,
on.
at a quarter inch,
At a 1/4 inch per foot, correct.
Yeah.
So after 5 feet, that would give you 1.25 inches, which would almost put you right at 30 inches. So
Exactly.
at 5.5 feet, your building is now too tall.
then
code.
in that case, if it doesn't pass plans review, I would reduce the 8'7", so it would.
Okay, would that impact at all the exterior of your building?
No.
where- Okay.
I've spent a good deal of time on this very item, the height.
Okay. I want to reiterate.
And also have spoken with my construction partners on it.
Okay. I want to reiterate a comment from a fellow commissioner. So if we're looking at the front of the elevations and the other 3 elevations around the main structure, the primary structure, there does seem to be some disconnect between either what is showing as reveal lines, either score lines in the stucco, some of your column placements, your window fenestration. You know, some of the examples that you presented are very rectilinear, very much in terms of alignment and trying to keep things almost in a rigorous pattern. You
Well,
seem to break that.
Yes, well,
with-
if I'm understanding you correctly, let's take this for example. These are stucco expansion joints, these
Correct.
lines, and I intentionally broke the top parapet.
But would you have one of those stucco expansion joints, as you mentioned, end at the top of a window in the center? I mean, that's construction-wise, that's something you typically wouldn't see.
Where are you talking about?
Your rear elevation.
The rear elevation, oh, say, okay. No, I don't see why not. Let me show you what I'm using, okay?
Okay.
So this product is what I intend to use, and intend to use the same product around the edge of the windows, the openings to the windows. This is the finished look, where the float stucco is guided by these surfaces and contained by them.
Okay.
So there's no, what should I say, construction difficulty in bringing that down there.
All right, final question I have for you. Do you have any of the details for windows, constructions, doors, your trellis, any of the typical details that we might see on this building, or is what you presented the only drawings you have?
Have I done more? No, I mean, this is, what should I say, design development, so I don't go into extensive details at this point.
Okay. Are there any additional questions from my
Yes.
fellow commissioners?
Yes. So, for the front porch area, what is the intended ceiling material? Soffit
It
material?
is concrete, stuccoed. The porch, the second floor porch flooring is poured concrete.
Okay.
So the underside will be stuccoed.
Regarding the windows, the examples of the various manufacturers, and I know you're not settled on the manufacturers, they all seem to show, well, one showed, one large light, and then the other one, I think, showed some smaller lights within the window. Your
The-
elevations indicate, elevations seem to indicate that they will have 6 lights or something like that. Is that the
No,
intent?
no. How do you get 6 lights? Where?
Can
The-
you just put one of the elevations up?
Here you go. We have this single casement window. We have 2 casements with a fixed fan above it.
Okay.
And then
So-
we have the fixed, which is the same as the bottom.
So my question is, the elevations are true, not what the manufacturer examples were showing. There was one that did show divided lights.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice that when I put that up. There was the vinyl that I was trying to express or communicate to you. And these windows have nice styles on them. It's nice and thick.
Okay.
Nothing flimsy about them.
I think that's it. Oh, no, the other thing, the material on the front entry stair and porch, is that also concrete? Or is that tile of some sort or paver?
It is pavers, it's cast stone pavers, so it's concrete, but it's not cast in place. It's
Okay.
cast, and then it is placed like tile is placed.
Understood. That's it for me. Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments from commissioners?
No, thank you.
Okay. The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I believe I answered the questions. If I've answered your questions, then I have nothing to say.
Thank you. At this point, we will close the public hearing, and the commissioners will now begin discussing the case. The commissioner would like to begin or have any comments?
I have a few things I can start with as conditions, most likely. If we decide to approve based on our conversation, obviously this design exception. We probably need to talk about that, the front yard setback too. And I think the final materials for the railings of that bridge is important to at least be discussed and approved with staff. What else? That back door, we didn't see anything for the back door. The fencing material, there was no examples of that, but just for those things to be finally approved by staff. I think your issue with the roof height is important to put in there, that that third floor will be reduced to 30 feet, no higher. I think that's all I have on my list. Is there anything else we need to add or talk about besides
Well,
that?
I'd actually like to talk about a couple of things.
Okay.
Commissioner Sutton had brought up the discussion about the front elevation. I do think that there are a few elements within that composition that could be readdressed. I just looking at the composition and knowing that we tend to see things in reality and perspective, but we still do follow certain protocols within the design realm and look at compositions and alignments and, symmetry about openings and things like that. I do think that the front facade does have some elements that could use some review and reconsideration. The other thing is the facade of the secondary structure, which faces the alley. From the view of the drawing, it seems like it's a very plain, flat expanse. And we typically like to look at something that's a little bit more historically appropriate. We do know that in these historic neighborhoods, alleys are used very much for more than just driving your car down or having the garbage truck drive down it. I live in a historic district, or not a historic district, but a historic neighborhood, and even in my neighborhood, without the designation, is very active. So we would hope that as these neighborhood infill projects go through and they become more activated, that they also become zones for pedestrian activity as well. And so it'd be appropriate to reconsider how those garage doors are intended to be manufactured or designed. And then, of course, yes, I agree with the railing. I was actually kind of surprised to see the cable rail system in that image. So for me, those are the three main sort of design elements that I have concern about from historic appropriateness.
So specifically for the front facade, was there something?
Front facade is from the second and third story perspective. When you look at the openings of the porch and the arched openings beyond, they don't align, and it really becomes an issue of rhythm and I understand the function, but the placement of those windows in relationship to the openings to the street. And then again, that would follow through the third floor, because those openings have relationship to the openings on the second floor. Those are my three big items.
Commissioner Boyd or Sutton?
I'm just going to make a very quick and passing comment right now. I can understand the context that we're working with here, and I can understand the precedents that have been brought towards us this evening. I can also understand the nature of your daring departure with respect to this domestic piece of architecture that you're proposing for the site. But I remain very, very much disappointed in the lack of resolution for a lot of key details and elements that are part of this design at this point in time. I would have thought that in presenting such a bold departure, that these details would have been perhaps more resolved at this point in time. I'm talking doors, windows, trellises, maybe even basic elements of construction in itself. Because all we have to gauge right now is a wall section for construction, really nothing at all on paper to define railings, caps to walls, doors, window surrounds, all of these sorts of items. It's hard for me to proceed with that lack of resolution.
I only share the similar concerns as to what we've already heard, the historical nature of a cable railing. Also, the true vinyl windows, we often see wood, vinyl clad windows. I don't know if that's something that we want to address. And then I think that there are a lot of outstanding items that need finalization. We don't often hear. We're only here to receive the information you provide today. So knowing that things might change, that your client might make decisions outside of what you've presented, those items just have to be conditioned. So we end up with a lot of question marks. As well, we appreciate the historic notes that you brought on the front end of your presentation, but being mindful that we only have 30 minutes to review your project. Really diving into what you're presenting today is important as well, so just something to be mindful of.
I think I would reiterate, similar to what my fellow commissioner said, is that, you know, you can see the passion and kind of the excitement you have for this project in the sort of the first portion of the presentation. But I think that time spent on that kind of that storytelling portion that a lot of the designers and architects in us like to do, maybe took away a little bit from the presentation, and we would have liked to have seen a little bit more details and some substance of what this building would look like to answer some of the questions that are unfortunately kind of outstanding. I could see the direction you're going, but there are still a lot of things that are kind of unanswered or still not fully there yet. And I'd like to kind of see that continue with the progression. Is there any other additional comments or questions from commissioners?
No, I think we covered.
None for me.
Okay. Would a commissioner like to make a motion in either direction?
Okay.
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing, ARC 20-364, for the property located at 310 East Ross Avenue, with the following conditions. The approval of your design exception, the design of the front doors be approved by staff, specification of rear doors is approved by staff, specification of second floor balcony doors is approved by staff, roof not exceed the code allowed 30 foot 0 inches. Final window specification is approved by staff. Specification of bridge railing is approved by staff. Specification and height of fence is approved by staff. Specification of garage doors is approved by staff. And the rhythm of the front facade, windows, and doors is considered. Because based upon the finding of
The
fact-
design exception.
That's first note. The proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. For the following reasons, the orientation, alignment, and maintaining of local materials is consistent with the guidelines.
I second the motion.
And then before we vote, does the applicant or agent understand the conditions that were applied?
I do, yes.
And then could you just go on, use the microphone, sorry.
I do understand the conditions.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, sorry.
Against?
Against.
Aye.
Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. So in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Velam, staff with Historic Preservation. The next case we're going to review this evening is ARC 20-422 for the address of 1704 West Chaton. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The primary structure is a contributing structure. The underlying zoning that's attached to this parcel is RM24, which is multifamily. And the request in front of you this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for an addition to the primary structure, new construction of a one-story accessory structure, approximately 240 square feet, with some site elements attached to this request. You'll see that this address was in front of you on November 2nd, 2020. There was a variance attached to that initial request, which was denied, and then the certificate of appropriateness was continued to this evening. I'd like to share a couple of photos and the Sanborn with you at this time. Starting with the 1929 Sanborn map, property in question is highlighted in the green. It is an interior parcel with an alley that runs east and west behind the property. Primary street is Chaton. To the west you have Fremont, and to the east you have Rome. To the south you have Watrous. As you notice here, and you'll see in the overhead, that there's some larger structures that are speckled through the area to show the multi-family environment that surrounds it. This is a current day aerial. Property in question is in the green box. You see the larger rooftops that surround the property. Once again, you have Chaton, you have Watrous to the south, you have Fremont, and then Rome to the east. Primary structure is a great example of a high-end craftsman style home. As we get into some of the photos, I'll call out some of the details, but you see the brick columns that flank the front porch. Looking down vehicular access, and then on this eastern elevation, you see the engagement of the fireplace, which is kind of lacking in some of the new construction that we reviewed today. It breaks up this facade. Also breaking up this facade is this bay that comes out. You see a featured window on this side with a little shed roof above. As you get into the dissecting the siding, you have the horizontal siding that is mitered at the end, and then you have the shake shingles on the gable end. Also on the gable end on that east elevation, once again, you have the shake shingles. You have the brackets, the venting for the gable, and then you have a double fly rafter to give it some thickness. Looking at how the siding is laid first, and then the trim and the casings of the windows are applied over to provide additional siding, shadowing, excuse me. You have a traditional sill. These are the ornamental brackets that are on top of the columns on the front porch. This is the mitering of the siding and how it canters out as it approaches the earth. To the east, you have a non-contributing structure. To the west, you have a complementary contributing structure. And to conclude, directly across the street, you have a period structure as well, which is contributing. At this time, I'll introduce Mr. Hadley, and he could present his case.
Good evening. My name is John Hadley with Rowe Architects, and tonight I'm representing Drew Newman, and Drew's in attendance there. I'll point him out. He wasn't able to be at our first go-around last month, but he was able to be here tonight, so that's exciting. And then also I'll point out Alex Kalita, she is helping out on the design team for interior design. So we have a strong showing tonight, but I'll keep things as concise as possible, just to kind of keep the evening moving. And knowing that you guys had the benefit of kind of seeing some of this material before, but of course, if there's anything you want to revisit or discuss further, please let me know. So a little bit of background on Drew and his family, fourth generation Tampa residents. They moved here from Ohio with family business. The family business is the J.C. Newman Cigar Company. They have operate today out of a historic factory in Ybor City. We're fortunate enough to be involved in a commercial renovation of the factory, which we've worked closely with Ron and his staff and folks with the state SHPO office to secure tax credits for the project. So Drew and his wife Ariel were very excited to find this house in Hyde Park. They've been looking in Tampa, and they were excited in particular about this one because of the existing historic features both on the inside and outside that remained largely intact over the years. Ron kind of pointed out many of these historic features that Drew and Ariel really love. I'll kind of quickly go through them again. The original windows in place, the attic venting, the eave brackets, original brick columns, piers with some detailing, the wood siding, which appears to be in excellent shape, and then the tapered skirt going down to grade there. So all in all, a really great house that's in really good shape that we tried to add on to in a way that was sensitive to it and complementary. So going to the existing structure. The original single-story house you can see here in front, and then the demolition scope of the project is this rear primary bedroom that, while it is of a certain age, it's not original to the house, and so that's where we're going to be taking that off and adding on to the rear of the house. This is the original floor plan, where again you can see that primary bedroom. And this kind of from a massing standpoint, it's the way it ties into the existing roof can easily be taken off. So the site plan is consistent with what you've seen before with some minor tweaks. And I should say that the feedback from last month was very well received, and I think ultimately it improved the design of the house. And what I'll try to do is, as we go through, directly speak to the issues that were raised then and some changes that we made to address your concerns. So on the site plan, again, it's a very similar footprint. I think kind of the one item that you'll notice right away that I'll speak to in more detail as we go is the revision of the back kind of porch outdoor space. We previously kind of had a trellised kind of condition that the feedback was to consider kind of softening that and making it a little more casual, and to consider the proportions of it and the amount of room that we'd allocated for that space. And in thinking about it more with the owner, given the sizes of some of the interior spaces, we felt like in the end it did make more sense to, I think, kind of break down that wall and create a more open environment as you come out the back door. And you'll also see in the southeast corner the accessory dwelling unit, an extended family residence that is in the same place as last time. So it was, I'm sorry, go back to the site plan. Again, just to kind of revisit this, the main scope of the job is to add on to the rear of the house the primary bedroom, kind of in this area, to expand it out to the south, and then expanding the kitchen, and then creating kind of a sunroom, sort of Florida room condition here that acts as kind of an indoor-outdoor go-between between the kitchen and the rear patio. And then up above, adding a second level that you can see dashed in the outline here, kind of overbuild, which I'll speak to more as we look at the floor plans. While we're on the site plan here, a couple items that came up in last month were the mechanical units and the exact location of those, and how they would be screened, and what the existing fencing is doing. So the existing fence runs from our property to the neighbors in this way, east-west, and then there's a portion that runs to the south and rings and cuts back here like that all the way around, and then there's the existing fence closes right about here. We would be demoing that portion and creating a new section of fence here to enclose that kind of mechanical yard that we're creating with the new AC locations. And the fencing, the existing fencing here, by and large, the owner would like to not do anything with it as much as possible. It's depending on which side you're on, it's in various conditions. Some of it's in okay condition, some of it's not in great condition, but it's a very standard 6-foot wood fence. So at this time, we would propose not touching it. The only portion would be installing a 6-foot painted wood fence in this area right here. There was some discussion about the solar panels that we would still like to propose for the roof over the primary bedroom here and where we'd be locating that equipment. The existing electrical panel and meter are on the west side here, set back from the house in the side yard, and we would locate the equipment for the solar panel mounted on the house at that location as well. To give you a sense of what I was referring to with the renovation and the addition, from essentially this wall forward, from the family room and the breakfast nook there, that's all existing. And I don't have any photos of the interior here, but it's in very good condition, and there's going to be some renovation or refinishing of the floors and the trim, but none of the walls are moving. From here forward, it's from here backward where the majority of the work is occurring. So the kitchen is being expanded to the south, the creation of this sunroom here, and then the primary bedroom kind of reconstructed in the same location, just pushing a little further out to create a more spacious, livable primary bedroom from the house. And then you see the patio that I referred to earlier. And then this is kind of the stair tower to get up to the second floor, which the massing of that was brought up last time, and I'll point that out in the elevations. So this is the second floor addition, and kind of revisiting the concept is that we would add the second floor, these bedrooms in a way that is consistent with the sleeping loft concept that you see throughout Hyde Park and generally speaking in this area of home. So the stair tower comes up, kind of a play area there, and then bedrooms on the north and south in that manner with a bathroom. This is a roof plan to give you a sense of how we're kind of stitching into the existing roof. The existing roof, you can see in gray here, it has a ridge line that runs east-west, pitches north and south. The sleeping loft, we'll call it, second floor, the ridge line runs perpendicular to that, and then down below the primary bedroom is a single slope to the south, as is over the kitchen and the sunroom. And I won't dwell too much on this because we talked about it last time, but to kind of explain some of the historical context behind the sleeping loft. These are some precedent examples you see throughout Hyde Park. This one, the ridgeline runs parallel to the main ridgeline of the house. This one runs opposite, but it kind of pokes up and is almost expressed as a kind of a dormer on the front of the house. The windows tend to be a little bit smaller, but they oftentimes are kind of maximized as much as possible. You can see next door, because historically you want to allow those breezes to come through. So these are the elevations here. Sorry. All right, this is the existing north elevation. So this is what you see from the street, Jatan. And then this is the proposed. You can see that second floor added. And one thing I'd like to point out is that I believe on the elevations that were submitted for your review last week, I made some revisions to the expression of these windows up above as a matter to kind of meet code, the egress requirements for that to be a bedroom. Those windows the proportions of them changed. I'll leave it at that. But I took care to reference the existing windows as much as possible, given the code requirements for that. This is the existing east elevation, so what you see from the side yard where the driveway is. This is where the ribbon driveway comes. This is a really nice elevation with these existing windows, and then Ron referenced the chimney there. And you can see on the back side, this is the existing primary that we're proposing to take down. And this is that proposed elevation, which gives you a good sense of that sleeping loft pop-up on the second floor, and then from this dash line back is where the work is being proposed. So this is where the kitchen is beyond, the sunroom, and then the master in the background, their primary bedroom. This is the south elevation, which you see from the backyard. And this is the proposed. And the articulation of the glazing on the sunroom was very intentional in that the goal was to really emphasize the indoor-outdoor nature of that space and give it as much of an outdoor feel while still being conditioned. It's kind of it's a room where the dogs can run around and it can be a little messy and the toys are there, but you kind of feel like we are outside when you're inside there comfortably. And this is the west elevation. And this is, it's a little deceiving in the sense that the house on this side of our property is very tight up to it, so you really never see this. But this is it in elevation. And you can see the electrical panels here. And then the proposed, where we put the stair tower intentionally because this elevation is not as prominent from the street, is this. Previously, there was some concern about the way the stair tower roof plugged in directly to the sleeping loft, and so we pulled that down to allow this pure articulation of that volume as it goes from front to back. Because it's a stair, we're able to do that with the headroom as you go up. And I'll note that we introduced the slightly different expression. All the windows are double hung, single light windows, top bottom, single light windows, 1/1, and we took pains to be consistent with that throughout all the new windows. And this is a slightly different expression here where it's a fixed single pane window that kind of acts almost like a clear story. And that's sort of the one exception where we did that a few times now. You can see up in this bedroom because the roof doesn't allow windows to come down lower than that, and then here in the master bedroom for privacy. This is a building section, diagrammatic building section through the middle of the house with the street out here, porch, the existing porch, coming through the main living room, dining room, bedrooms up above, and then the primary bedroom off the rear. This is a typical wall section with asphalt dimensional shingles, tongue and groove wood soffit, with the exposed rafter tails matching the same depth as the existing ones, the cedar wood siding with the same, it has a slightly triangular profile to it as it's lapped together. Wood windows, And then the tapered skirt down to grade here with over, concrete foundation and hardwood floors on the inside. And then the exterior trim, I'll show you kind of the intent of that, is essentially to match the existing and how it's cased out on the exterior. An example of typical eave bracket, painted wood. And that's, again, design intent behind a typical window, picking up on the existing casing. It's typically, it's 4.5 by and large, except when they're gang together, and sometimes they can be up to 8 inches wide on that intermediate casing. But very traditional expression. Looking at the accessory dwelling unit, the intent is, because it's the terminus to the ribbon driveway, the idea is that it would be expressed as a single-story kind of garage accessory structure. And so on what would be the north elevation that faces the driveway, this is just a precedent image, but the same kind of idea that you have a larger kind of glazed opening there, which, let me go ahead and this would be that opening here. And this is taking language, architectural language from the sunroom, the way that those windows are laid out. And then on the west side, so that faces the yard, you'd have a simpler, more kind of restrained elevation that allows for some privacy inside the unit. And then on the east and south, because they face the fence, there's no glazing on those elevations. And then that's the floor plan there. So this faces the driveway to the north. And here are some perspectives. This is from the street. Okay. So the front of the house will remain as is. You see the addition of the sleeping loft above, but from the street, you don't even really get a sense of the addition in the back. You can see the accessory dwelling unit in the background. And this is a perspective from the rear yard, essentially standing where the accessory dwelling unit is. And this is where you get most of the articulation of the project there, with the sunroom, primary bedroom, and sleeping loft above. And now I will speak to some of the materials and fixtures we have selected. There was some discussion about exactly what kind of equipment would be needed and the size for the solar panels. And we would be using equipment that would use a microinverter. So the size of it is very contained. It's the size of an electrical panel, and it typically gets installed right next to it. So it would be something like this. We already talked about the eave bracket. Wood windows with, similar to this shows the kind of mutton expression. It would be the 1/1 that you see in the elevations. Exterior light fixtures as needed, which would be, while we haven't made final selections on that, the idea that it would be very deferential, we'll say, to the existing house and style. Elegant, restrained, but timeless. Same with door hardware, something to this effect. Door numbers in this vein. And I apologize, I don't have a cut sheet for the exterior door. I did not bring it with me, but it would be actually similar to the existing front door. While I don't think the existing front door is historic, it's a stained wood door with a dental detail. I think 3 or 4 lights up high, and we would replace it in kind. And yeah. And with that, I will turn it over to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff finding that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. We had some conditions associated with this request on page 4 of your staff report. The majority of the items were addressed through the presentation. A couple of comments that staff has is to provide the patio paving material that was shown on the site plan. The mechanicals on the west side of the site plan have been moved to be code compliant as presented tonight. The fence height and design and materials were discussed to replicate the existing fences on the site. And if the agent has any additional information with a wall glazing that is on the east and the south elevation, it should be entered into the record at this time. And then one condition, if this project is to move forward with final approval, that he's talked about the special use for the detached dwelling. There's some criteria that must be met. This is a review that goes through the zoning department. It has to be a family member that is associated with that extended family, and the square footage. Through our preliminary review, everything met the criteria of zoning, but there is a process. It is an interior process that zoning reviews and then awards that request administratively if all the criteria is met, but that should be a condition as this moves forward. I will be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the public hearing to any public comment. Okay, seeing none. The commissioners will now ask questions. The commissioner would like to begin.
I would like to open up the discussion about your accessory structure. Can you go over the details of its size and its placement with respect to its use, and how that may be different if it were used in some other fashion?
Well, so this is its relation to the building and to the site. And I think if it was used as some other, its size is compact and really meant for kind of limited family visits. If it was ever, if the function of it was ever changed into, for instance, some kind of storage structure, I think the sizing of it would still work. I guess, can you be more specific about what you're?
Well, let's put it this way. I can understand how they might have a member of the family come live with them either on a limited or permanent basis, and this is their home away from the rest of the crazies that are happening here. Fast forward a few years, house gets sold, and someone wants to turn that building into a home office, or they want to turn it into an efficiency apartment for the market. Would the placement of that building be still lawful for that purpose?
I think so, because I think it's a natural location for it to be at the end of the driveway there. Mm-hmm. And to really kind of move it further to the west, I think gets into the yard in a way that access to it, you're either walking through the yard, you're walking through the house, or you're creating some other access off the alley, which the owner would really like to limit, I think, the amount of access off the alley.
Well, with your special use for the, for this, which you're going to go through zoning for, are there any dispensations with respect to setbacks to side yard, rear yard lines, or even separations between it and the main building that are different than some other potential use?
I don't know about the differences that the potential differences of the side yard setbacks. We are abiding by the setbacks for an extended family residence, but I don't know if they differ from if it was served a different function. I don't know.
Might be worth checking into.
Okay.
Just to make sure that in the future, if something should change, change can happen. Next.
I assume that it's to match existing, but have you made a decision on the roof material?
It will be asphalt shingle. The existing roof is in very poor condition, and we've recommended to the owner that it all gets replaced. And I suspect when they take up the new shingles, that there will be a decent amount of damage to the existing roof sheathing, and that'll get replaced too. But it will go back with asphalt shingles.
And then I might have missed this, but did you provide the patio paving material?
Well, yeah, I'm glad Ron brought that up. In the drawing submitted a week or two ago, there was more of an expression in the site about some kind of hardscape, and that did come up in November, particularly as it relates to the existing. And we decided at this time the owner is not interested in providing any kind of hardscape beyond the patio that you see here. The patio, the intent is that the floor finish will match the sunroom, which will be a cement tile.
I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Clausen or Takibis?
I do. Am I on? No. In terms of the windows for the sunroom, and you said that the garage facade facing the street would be of a similar family. Do you have information on that, what that system actually is? And are those windows fixed, or are they operable? And if they're operable, what type of operation would they be?
The intent is, let me pull up that elevation. Okay. The intent is that these upper portions would be fixed and the bottoms would be, we haven't discussed that yet, but they would be operable. I'm not sure whether it'd be hopper or an awning, or, if they're coming in or out, but the bottom portions would be operable at this time. That's kind of how we're leaning. And in a precedent image, we have is similar to that.
And where is this precedent image?
Not local.
Can you show the precedent across the street? I believe you had a sunroom somewhere in the neighborhood. You had an image of a house from the exterior.
Was that the one with the cottage?
It looked like it was a cottage bungalow that had a sunroom within it, and I thought he had stated that it was some kind of precedent. And I don't remember the color of the house, but it was definitely in your photos. No, not that one. It may have been loose. It was a street view. I can't see that. Can you fit that under there? Yes, thank you. That is where?
This is in Hyde Park. I don't have the address on me.
Okay, well, this is why I asked for this, because
Okay.
I thought you had said it was precedent and that it was from one of our historic districts. So in this case, you don't know anything about these windows and how they're used, if they're operable or anything like that?
I don't, no.
I could elaborate that on a little bit. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. In our Hyde Park Design Guidelines, there's a section in there if one wishes to enclose a portion of a front porch, which this is a wraparound porch. This is consistent with our criteria in the Hyde Park Design Guidelines. So these are casement windows and they operate. So above they have a transom. And since this was a wraparound porch, the lower portion of this picture here it has a heavy horizontal sill, and then they have the 2x4 pickets below that would have been part of the railing to encapsulate, the porch area. So in working with these people, 15, 20 years ago, this was approved by this board.
And within the guidelines, I'm sorry, I just want to follow up on what your statement was. In the guidelines, does it state specifically that those types of elements have to have an operable component?
They do not have to operate. What we're looking for is the proportions that, and the scale are consistent with the architectural style.
Okay, thank you very much. So, just going back to your elevation, either the rear or the side view, it doesn't matter which one.
Okay.
It seems to me, it's a little hard to read because of the screening that you used on the image. It looks like you will have divided lights in each of the,
I don't know if they'll be truly divided, but yeah.
but there'll be an element that you'll perceive it as being divided.
Yes, and that's where it's a departure from the articulation of the other windows, but we felt like that was, if you're gonna do a departure, that you could do it there and express it kind of as a porch.
All right, thank you very much. That's it for me, for now.
I don't have any additional questions.
I have two questions. Could you put up the, I believe it would be the north elevation or the front, real quick? Never mind, don't have a question on that. Then second thing is, do you have a wall section through the new or the two-story addition, or is your only wall section just that one story?
Just a single story.
Okay. Are there any additional questions?
Actually, could you put the west elevation back up? I just want to look at it really quickly, please. I don't have any other questions, I just needed to look at this elevation. All right, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay. The applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I have none.
All right. At this point, we'll close the public hearing, and the commissioners will now discuss the case. Anyone like to begin?
I like this. This is well resolved.
It's beautiful.
Done a good job.
Much improved.
As an advocate for the interior designer, I might find it difficult to furnish the upstairs rear bedroom, but that's my only note.
Okay. I think the only real maybe questions is just maybe a little bit more information on that walling or that wall glazing unit and maybe the doors, but otherwise I think it's really going in a good direction, so. Would a commissioner like to make a motion, and also with that motion, make sure they use the special use for the accessory structure?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-422 for the property located.
Excuse me, Commissioner, did you say, Madam Commissioner, did you say 442 or 422?
442.
Okay.
For the property located at 1704 West Jeton Avenue, with the following conditions: that the special use for the detached dwelling be approved by zoning and the exterior doors are approved by staff. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines for the city of Tampa for the following reasons: the scaling, proportion, and rhythm is consistent with guidelines.
I second that motion.
And then before we vote, do you understand the conditions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The next case is ARC 20-446. The address is 1801 Richardson Place. This is also in the Hyde Park Historic District. primary structure dates back to 1921, which is contributing. The zoning is RS 60. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness in addition to the primary structure. There is no footprint change associated with this request. All of the addition will be attached and incorporated into the roof line that's existing. Starting with the Sanborn map, this is a corner parcel on the corner of Gumby and Richardson. You have hills to the north, and there is a partial alley behind. Since this 1929 Sanborn, they have incorporated a new accessory structure that is detached, that will show up in the photos. So it's a little bit different than what this aerial shows. Once again, a corner parcel on the corner of Gumby and Richardson Place. As I stated, the accessory structure is towards the rear of the property. It comes off of Gumby, and the house has had a series of additions done to it over the years. Very clean look, period structure with a beautiful deep porch with a porte-cochere coming off of Richardson. Looking at the interior elevation, a lot of landscaping. This is where the private space is, but you see some of the volume to the house. Then moving around to the Gumby side, this is the front of the house. As you go through the porte-cochere, the first floor continues, has a side yard fence. Moving down the Gumby side, looking back at the house, you see the existing condition with a single story and the second story. And this is the accessory structure I talked about that came in some time ago, that was approved by this board. And you see a little bit of the rear of the structure. Just focusing on the second floor, you see the corners, how they terminate, the casement windows with the right proportions. Once again, the brackets that are very characteristic of architecture in the early 1900s with a metal 5 feet kimp roof. And to complete the photo presentation, just a couple of shots. This is the abutting structure that's interior, and then directly across the street, picking up on some of the same vocabulary of the house that you're going to look at. That concludes the photo presentation, and I'll have Ms. Shoecliff address the board at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Missy Shoecraft, and I represent Thomas and Jennifer Azzarelli, who are here with us tonight. They reside at 1801 Richardson, which is, Ron mentioned, is on the corner of Richardson and Gumby. Also, as he mentioned, this house was built in the 1920s. It has had a number of additions over the years, none that were put on by the Azzarellis. They're a fairly new owner. And they find themselves in a 3-bedroom house with a growing family, and now they need a 4th bedroom. So we were trying to figure out how to do that for them. And we have spent the last couple of months actually working with staff on a number of different scenarios to try to come up with something that would work for the family, as well as obviously within the historic district guidelines. One of the things I wanted to point out, and I'll start with the site plan, because this is a very instructive diagram. First of all, the lot is 80 by 130, so it's not quite a double lot, but it is a substantial lot in Hyde Park. So it can hold a lot of mass. And in this case, as you can see, the sort of gray-brown is actually what is there now. So there's the accessory structure that Ron was discussing that I believe was built in around 2000, I believe, is when that came on. This is the front porch, which faces Richardson. There's the porte-cochere, and then the mass of the house now on the first floor goes all the way around On the second floor, which is in the orange-red, that is the additional second-story structure, which at the moment houses 2 bedrooms. One bedroom is very small and a shared bathroom, and I'll show you that on the floor plans. And then the yellow is what we are proposing to add on, if allowed by the board. One of the things that the staff had encouraged us to do, because as I said, we went through several different models with them before we came to you, was to pull the massing on the second story away from the first story walls as much as possible to articulate a first floor roof that would kind of wrap around the massing of the second story, which is very typical, as you saw in the previous presentation and others that I'm sure you've seen over time. This is, again, just a floor plan of the first floor, starting from the front. We have the porch, there's a front room, a secondary room, which is really a formal dining room, the kitchen with a family room, and then the master suite is on the back of the house. This drawing shows the existing second floor, which is, as I mentioned before, there were 2 bedrooms, a stairwell, and a small bathroom. And so the idea was to cannibalize the second bedroom here and put the massing on the back of it. This new space will become a laundry area and then just a small playroom. Coming towards the back, you'll see there's 1 bedroom with a bathroom, and then the last bedroom with a secondary bathroom. So now we have a 4-bedroom home, which is what they're looking for. These are the elevations, and what's highlighted in the gray is really the addition portion. Starting from the front of the house, you can see the porch, the porte cochere, the original second story, and then in the back, you can see the massing for the addition. By way of context, this wall, for example, here, which is the first wall of the addition as you're standing on Gumby, is, and I wrote this down, is 50 feet from the front facade of the house. And as you know, elevations are very flat. So we also did a few massing studies, which I'll show you in a little bit, to kind of show how we've tried to tuck it away as much as possible. From the front property line, this is 73 feet. This is the view from Gumby. This facade here, this elevation here, is 32 feet from the property line. So it sits far into the lot. The addition starts here, turns the corner, and then wraps itself around the back, which you'll see in the other ones. This is the rear elevation. This is 22 feet from the back property line. This is the back of the first floor master suite. And then this is the interior elevation, and this sits 32 feet from the side property yard. This is the roof plan. This is the front of the house. And then this is how we've tied in the new roof that sits on the current first story. So these are the massing studies that we took. This is not exactly from the front of the house. It's sort of front and west. And what's highlighted in yellow is the addition. So again, the importance of these massing studies is to show how far back this addition is. This is now walking down Gumby, pretty much the corner of, I keep saying Gumby, it's Richardson and Gumby. This is that porte cochere, and from this vantage point, and these were taken from eye level, you cannot see the addition. This one is a little more instructive. Pulling yourself further back, across the street, there's the addition on the back. This would be the full frontal on Gumby. Again, the yellow highlight is the addition, this being the accessory structure and the rest of the massing, as you know. And this is continuing the walk down Gunby. Obviously, the accessory structure blocks the view. The one thing I wanted to say is that this tree is not indicative of the size of the tree. The tree is a live oak, and so we took real pictures of the live oak today. So that's what it looks like now, and a close-up view is here. So it is a substantial tree that blocks almost everything. It's very difficult to see the back of the house. In the staff report, there was a couple things that were noted in terms of items that we needed to bring forward. And we do have a section which I'd like to walk you through, which is right here. The roof material is what is there now, which is the 5V crimp metal roof, and that's what we would propose to put on the addition. For the windows, which are really sort of the primary feature on this addition, we're proposing to use the Anderson A-Series wood-on-wood window. And this.
I'm sorry, could you pull, great. I thought you were not putting them in the, thank you, sorry.
Not a problem. And this is actually very similar to the light pattern on the windows on the house. One of the things I didn't note is that the first floor is stucco, the second floor is lap siding, and we would, of course, continue the lap siding. In terms of the decorative brackets, the venting, the rafters, and the soffit material, as well as the trim around the window, all of that would match the existing condition, and currently it's all wood. And that's what we would propose to use as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Ron Vila with Historic Preservation. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. There were two key points that we were looking for to add on to the second story, was to break up the massing in a way that was consistent with the architecture within Hyde Park, and that the roof skirting continued to wrap around the addition, so it appears that the second floor is nestled into that roof line. I believe the additional presentation aids are very beneficial to the presentation today, and that's why we requested them, so the board could understand exactly what was being presented. With that, I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the public hearing to any public comment. Seeing or hearing none, the commissioners will now begin discussing the case. Anyone like to begin?
I have one question.
Go.
Is there an additional AC unit required for the new addition?
At this time, we haven't done the energy calcs, but I would assume there would be, and that unit would be tucked in the back of the rear facade, so behind the master bedroom in the backyard.
Okay, thank you.
And we've got 22 feet, so we have plenty of room to put it back there, and that would not be visible from any public area.
Thank you. That's my only question, thank you.
I have no question.
Commissioner Sutton?
I have no question.
I have no questions as well. Any additional comments? All right. Applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
Okay. At this point, we'll close the public hearing, and the commissioners will now discuss the case. Anyone like to discuss the case, or would anyone be ready to make a motion?
All I can say as a whole is that the airplane bungalow is a nice affectation, but very often it's a very small and cramped and airy attic in many respects. And you very rarely see major changes made to those. And you're proposing quite a substantial, more than doubling its size. in terms of an addition and renovation. And I think you've done a very good job on that, with the constraint of the existing building, its footprint, its in and outs. You've used that to your advantage. So the pieces, it's not a huge piece, it's broken up into smaller pieces. And I think that's the advantage for everyone here, your owners and to your neighbors as well too, because you have that broken sight line.
Agreed. It's well-designed and well-communicated.
I have no further questions, no comments. I agree.
All right. Would a commissioner like to make a motion?
Go for it.
I'll break your.
Yeah, go for it.
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-446 for the property located at 1801 West Richardson Place. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park Historic District Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. That based on the scale, the massing, and the building form, the alignment, rhythm, and spacing, and the maintenance of materials within the district, that the project is consistent.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
There we go. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The next item that we have on our agenda this evening is case ARC 21-27. This is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a single-family residence and accessory structure and site improvements. This property is located at 2820 North Central Court in the Tampa Heights Historic District. And you recently reviewed a rezoning request and made a recommendation to City Council in favor of the rezoning from RS50 to a planned development, which is site plan controlled. That request, the rezoning, was approved by City Council on September 30th. So I'd like to remind you as we begin this that the site plan is set by the ordinance that approved it, and that will not be anything that's really open for consideration this evening. So going through some photos here, this is an aerial of the subject site in Tampa Heights. This is Central Court here. Just wanted to kind of start with that just to show you its general location. This is sort of a dead-end road, Central Court. Let's see. Oops, sorry. So to the north, there is Robles Street. We have Central Avenue here and Jefferson Street here. And I believe this is Gladys Street to the south. So just a little history on the site. This is the red outline is the location of the site, shown on the Lake Robles subdivision plat from 1902. That area was further platted, this is the 1915 Sanborn map of that area, so you can see that Gladys Street did not go through from Jefferson to Central Avenue at that time. Okay. And this is the subdivision plat map for Central Court. The Central Court subdivision, Gladys Street was called Palmetto Avenue at that time. So the subdivision here consists of the properties that face Central Court and some of the adjacent properties around it. The subject site is just north there of Central Court and was outside the subdivision. So this is the 1920s Sanborn map of the area. And you can see that there were a couple of buildings along Central Court at that time. And then this is the 1976 Sanborn map, which is the latest year that we have Sanborn maps for the city of Tampa. And things kind of look a lot like they do in present day, with the exception that the property directed to the south as subject site is no longer standing, the building there, and there is a new construction going on the site that's 2 lots down. And this is what the new construction project looks like. I believe this is 2802 North Central Court. And then the one historic building that remains on this block is at 2809 North Central Court. And then there's another property that is not historic, but was on the site in the 1970s, as shown on the 1976 Sanborn map there. It's 2807 Central Court. Moving along here, this is a photo of the subject site. We're looking into it there. It's a vacant lot currently. This is looking toward the rear of the property there to the west. The first picture was also to the west, I believe. This is just more internal to the site. The shot is taken looking north toward the abutting properties. And then we have one looking to the east, toward the rear of the abutting property there. And this is from inside the subject site looking south onto Central Court. The property to the south where there was historically a building that's currently vacant, this is that site. So we're looking west at that. And then looking south again down Central Court. And this photo is looking north on Central Court toward the subject site. With that brief overview of the site and the surrounding structures, I'd like to have the applicant come forward and present his project.
Good evening, everyone. Last but not least, my name is Kim Beckwith. I am the co-applicant and personal counsel for Chris Beckwith. I'll be making the bulk of the presentation today, but if there's any technical questions that I can't answer, Chris is the designer of the house as well, so he can hopefully answer those for you. As you probably are familiar with this project, we've been before you. I think this is our 3rd time now. Kind of started the project a little backwards off some misguidance from the city. We kind of went that way first and then came here. But as Elaine referenced, we have had the site plan approved. We did incorporate some changes that the commission recommended before, and the site plan has been approved. I don't think that the site plan that you have is the correct one, because I believe that's the one that we were here before initially. But I do have the current site plan on our phone. So I'm going to try and put that up under here to see if you can see it, just to kind of give you a kind of background on how that is going to look. You might need to hold it up. I don't know if it will show up. Okay. So as you can see here, this is the fence that was in that photo. So the property, you would come in this way. This is where the driveway will come into. The main house sits here, looks east to the property over here, and then the accessory structure garage is off to the back. There's a very large oak tree up here in the front that will kind of protect all of that visually from the street as well. And then looking here at the floor plan, this is the inside of the first floor. It has a large porch out front. You'll be walking into a foyer area. The stairs will go up to the second floor. I have an open floor plan here, dining room, great room, fireplace, and then the kitchen and breakfast nook kind of encompasses the right side of the house here. There is a bedroom and a bathroom on the first floor. And then going up to the second floor, not all of the details have quite been finalized yet, such as the closet and whatnot, but there'll be 2 guest bedrooms here, master over here, the master bath, and a laundry area and guest bath. All of that will be on the second floor. And then looking at the elevations. As you can see here, again, is the front porch. This is kind of really the main structure here. This area over here, which is kind of a little I wouldn't say a walkway, but kind of, way to get out from the house over to the accessory structure, which would be over here. So when you're looking at it from the street, you won't actually be able to see this part of the house because it is set back from the front of the house. And then this is the rear elevation here. I'll get into some explanation of the windows and whatnot. Got some side elevations as well. And then as far as the details of the house, the building materials and whatnot, the roof will be dimensional shingles, asphalt shingles. The overhangs will be open rafters with the underside of the roof exposed. I think you can see that on. Is that on this one? Okay, I'll get you some photographs that will show that as well here in a moment. We have corbels on all of the gables. The exterior is going to be hardy board, lap siding, and then up in the gables will be board and batten detail. The doors will be wood doors with glass insert with a prairie style grid. All of the windows are PGT 5500 series. Got some cut sheets too, which I'll bring out in a second. It's all impact glass with applied muttons. Do we have a rear glass wall? The rear glass So what we've designed here is a large glass, kind of a fold-up window, if you will. Can you find the detail on that for me? While he's looking for that, I'll keep going. Oh, here we go. So this would be that large window, and this is in the breakfast nook area that's off of the kitchen, and here is the fold-up detail. And this would lead out to the back porch area, which would be, open to the backyard, not visible from the street or from any of the structures next door. And then most of the trim will all be, again, the hardy board, like on all the siding. The porch materials, here you can see the lower part of the column will be brick veneer. The upper parts will be wrapped with hardy board. The ceiling of the porch will be a 1x6 tongue and groove cedar. And the decking of the porches will be a 2x6 pressure-treated lumber. As far as the foundation, it is a stem wall and concrete slab. There's brick piers and a lattice to show an illusion of the pier system foundation. You know how you see on most of the old houses that are kind of built up a little bit and have the crawl space, that you can see the lattice work. It's designed to mimic that, to give an appearance of being an older home. And then I have a wall section here. Here's the wall section. It's a two-story cross section there. This is a sample of the windows. Again, it's the impact windows with the applied muntins. We did take some photographs of some of the neighboring homes to kind of show what the detail would look like once finished. Again, these are not, obviously our house, it's not built yet, but this one shows an example of what the corbels will look like. And these are all in the Tampa Heights district as well. This one is an example of what the open eaves will look like, and the porch. Again, another bungalow style with the open eaves. More open eaves. I think this picture was shown earlier. This is the neighbor's house that's under construction currently, 2 or 3 lots down. So you can see it has very similar style with the corbels, kind of the open eaves, the brick, and what the top wood part of the porch there. This was shown earlier as well. This is the blue house, the neighbors, similar. There's been, I think, some comment in the past on the width of the house. So we did have some photos. This house, is that Scott's house? This house is 65 feet wide, and it is actually the house that's directly to the east of our lot. This house is also 60-plus feet wide. It's on the corner of Central, kind of backs up to where our property will be on another side of a fence. It has 2 ancillary structures, a pool, and then that's the other house on the street, which is just a ranch-style house. But again, even this is approximately 65 feet wide, but again, it's this section is really the 39 feet wide, which is what you will really see when you pull up to the house. And again, you would actually need to pull down our driveway to see the house. You wouldn't really be able to see too much of it from the street because you'd be looking at it this way. So it actually would appear smaller from the street. This is the garage accessory structure. It's a 3-car garage. It has been, we did decrease the size based on your recommendations from the last time. Again, all of the design features match the house as far as the siding, the board and batten, the gables. I don't have any cut sheets on the, I'll take that back, I actually do, the doors, the hardware. Well, I had one on the hardware, but I don't know, lost it somewhere. But all of the exterior lighting will be bungalow, a craftsman style, typically oil rub bronzed. Same with the door hardware, the traditional craftsman style, oil rubbed bronze. Any of the house letterings, et cetera, would fall under that typical craftsman style. Those haven't obviously been finalized yet, but that will be the goal of that. And I think that is pretty much it for our presentation.
Thank you. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Pardon me, Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. So staff found that this application was consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. There were a few conditions in the staff report, and I was able to review those this morning, so I believe a number of them have been met. I think it would be valuable to review the height from grade and some of the details, the height from grade and some of the details in the sections, just to make sure that the information provided is satisfactory for the commission approval this evening. With that, I am here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the public hearing to any public comment. Seeing none, the commissioners will now begin asking questions about the case. Commissioner would like to begin?
Go ahead.
Please, could you pull up your front elevation, please?
Certainly.
I I'd almost like to see your side as well too at the same time, but this will be good enough as is. I understand the general precedences you're bringing forward to explain the design of this dwelling, but I have a reservation about one particular element, and that is the board and batten that you have on your gable ends for your main dwelling as well as for your accessory structure. You go through an awful lot of trouble to mimic your neighbor's horizontality in the design of and the construction of their dwellings, and yet you produce for yours a very, very strong vertical element. Have you considered other more traditional aspects of how you can clad a gable end, such as continuing your horizontal siding, or maybe going to a shingled siding system, or maybe a combination that you would see on some of these craftsman dwellings, as opposed to setting up a very strong horizontal everywhere except, boom, at your features, your peaks, when it becomes entirely vertical.
We have considered that, and we have done that in the past on homes. One of the things that we liked about the board and batten was that it kind of draws your eye to that design element.
It certainly does.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, it's just, that's not really that big. You're looking at really this area right here, right in the front. And then on the side, which, I mean, you won't even really be able to see this right elevation. So it's really just just those little elements there. Certainly could continue this siding, the hardy board siding, but we felt that was just a real, classic look that would look really nice in the neighborhood, and, liked the visual impact of it.
Could we quickly stay on this sheet since it's up on the right elevation? So there was a comment made by staff regarding the vent for the porch, so it would be on the right elevation, the lower one. Could you maybe discuss either the intention of that or the location?
I asked my architect to change these. I don't know if he just didn't do that one. I see it now on the porch, but there was a little one on the front porch, which he removed.
Commissioners, if I may, real quick. The comment there on the staff report was regarding some other vents that were shown on the front porch. So those have been removed.
Okay.
And I can discuss that one with him too. I'm not sure I need it. If I don't, I'll take it off.
Okay.
And as far as the board and batten comment, a lot of things I've read in the Tampa Heights criteria, whatever, says not to copy, not to be the same, but to be similar. So everybody has the kind of shaker siding in their gables. So that's kind of one of the other reasons we decided to go with something different.
I actually was going to ask the question about a historic precedent that indicates the board and batten gable end scheme with siding in this style. Because we do have it in the various districts, but it tends to be a different style. So it's a little discomforting with what your home actually is reading as.
Okay.
And then when you see the gable ends, it's just, it doesn't quite.
I mean, I don't have a problem changing it to the shaker if that's what we need to do.
I would just look at other precedents and be sure that you're comfortable with the material and the patterning that you put up there.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm asking, are you saying we can't do it this way, or is that?
For me, I don't think it respects the consistency of the historic precedents, and that's why I asked for precedent, but you don't have it, so.
Right, okay, sure.
We only can go on what we have presented
Okay.
before us.
There's actually. We do have board and batten houses here in Tampa, but they tend to be all board and batten.
Well, that's what we wanted to do, but we were told that that would probably never fly either. So I originally had the house designed all board and batten, the whole thing. Is that a consideration? That's what I wanted to do, and I was told not to.
Comments? I can see that personally myself. It's one or the other, consistent.
Okay, sure. I mean, and that was, again, my original design was board and batten on the whole house.
Personally, I think you could probably do it. I think the problem is since we don't see it and don't have an example of that, I'm a little hesitant to say yes without
Agreed.
visualizing it. But yeah, I mean, there are examples in the district that do have it. It would just be, what does it look like on this house?
I agree. There are a number of
So
things.
is that a yes or no?
Well, it's neither here or there.
Okay.
It's- Unfortunately,
If you legitimately want to pursue a board and batten scheme for this house, then perhaps what we might need to do is maybe continue this to another meeting date where a presentation could be made of this design in board and batten.
Well, this process has taken close to 8 or 9 months already, so I have no desire to come to another meeting. So if it's not decided tonight, then we'll go with, we'll probably, yeah, we'll change the gables to Shaker.
And I can see that being coordinated with staff. I think that'd be a proper move.
Okay.
We'll discuss it during our discussion period. There are a number of things within the staff report that need to be addressed, so I'm just gonna go through and hit those. There was a comment here about providing the height from the grade of other structures on Central Court to show consistency in your design. And I have to say, it was very hard to read a lot of the drawings, and it's been that way tonight for some reason. Everybody seems to have brought in really small drawings. So if you could put up your wall section or your elevation that shows those dimensions, and maybe we can zoom in with staff's assistance. And then you can speak to the other heights of the other properties along Central Court from the grade and how consistent
And then,
that is.
real quick before you answer, I do have one question for legal and staff on this. Are we able to ask this question since the PD did kind of lock in the first 4 criterias, which one of them is the scale and the height and width of the building and the massing?
I didn't think it was the elevation of the floor.
So I'll pull up the,
Is it elevation of floor or?
it's items 6 through 11 that you have the authority to focus on. And I'll pull those up, and it's on page 42 of the, I'll pull those criteria up, unless you have it already.
So normally in a PD rezoning, the overall height of the structure is dictated, but not the elevation from grade.
Which is
how
what the
that
staff
is
comment
proposed.
is.
Yep.
That's quite all right. So you understand what I'm asking for, right?
I do, and I can
It's
show you
where
right.
your finished elevation of your first floor
Sure.
starts from grade.
Yes, so here's the one house across the street. It's right on grade. Here is the other historic house that looks like it's, I don't know, the steps are actually not standard steps. They're probably about 5 inches, so that one's, my guess, 16 to 18 somewhere. This is the new house under construction, which is a little bit higher, but they haven't finished it, so I don't know what that grade is going to look like. My intention is to have 2 steps and then the 4-inch step to the door, so it would be 18 inches above grade.
Okay, thank you. And then there was a question about whether or not you had porch beams that you were signifying in any particular way on the porch elevation.
So the drawings that you have from before have been changed this week. You can see, basically you can see across here, this beam, all the way across.
Right.
There was a line in it that made it look like siding,
Right,
so we changed that.
okay, so it is the
It
intent.
is a solid piece of like 1 by 12 hardy
Okay.
that just wraps the beams.
Perfect. And then there was a question about the detailing of your paired windows. However, it seems that in the elevations, you've corrected that as well.
Yeah, you can see that right there with the 7 inches in
So
between.
can you speak to in the lower right, if we could get staff to zoom into the lower right of your sheet here and move over to the right? Right there, yeah, perfect. Can we focus? Can we go up? So these are indeed the intended dimensions for all your trim,
Yes,
which is 6 for the header, 2 for the sill, and then 7 for the paired mullion
correct.
in between, or jam. Okay, so that's been answered. Sorry, it's
No, it's okay.
It's a good list.
I mean, I just got the list on Tuesday afternoon, so
Understood,
luckily my
but
architect was able to turn this around for me.
It's good to get these answered. I do remember seeing this on the front facade. If we could just pull the sheet down so to get that front facade. At the front porch, the paired windows on the right, do you have a different height than the others?
There is a different height there, and that is because of the kitchen. If I make those full-height windows, then I lose a wall in the kitchen. I lose a complete wall in the kitchen, which is right here. So, you know, I can't, that would just be the kitchen sink, typically right there. So, I mean, the range is over here, the refrigerator's over there. I don't want to lose an entire, I'd end up with only 2 walls in the kitchen.
Okay.
So we lowered that, or we made it a double window. It was a single window. We made it a double window, moved it over. It'll look kind of funny from the inside, but it does look, you know, much better on the outside, not being a single window like it was before.
I would agree with that. Okay. I think I heard you say earlier that the mullions, the muttons would be applied muttons to all the windows, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. And then, we talked about the vents. Did we actually see a cut sheet on the door that you had selected? I remember you speaking about it, but was there a cut sheet for that?
I don't have one, but it is that prairie style that's on the elevation right there.
Okay.
It'll be a wood door with 2 side lights. I actually asked my architect to change it and put a transom across the top, but he didn't do that on this drawing.
Okay. Is that your intent to have it
Yeah,
changed to
yes,
that?
yeah, so it'll be a 6/8 door
6/8 door with a transom
with a transom,
above?
so that the transom height will match the height of the windows. I saw several houses in the neighborhood that have that same style.
Make sure that's indicated. Okay. So this is actually one that I wanted to ask about, and I was glad to see it on the list. Do you have a historic precedent or reference for the glass door garage style at the rear?
We don't. It's just something we wanted to do, and it can't be seen from anybody except the guy behind me if he looks, you know, if he gets on a ladder over his fence. It's just something we wanted to do to be able to open the back of the house versus just having
I have a
French.
question in terms of your orientation. Can you put your site plan back up from your phone, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So can you indicate on the site plan where that glass roll-up door is supposed to be?
It's right back here.
Okay, that's what I thought. And
so right there.
is that not facing Jefferson?
It is,
And is there a house on that lot?
yes.
Currently?
There's a fence, yeah, there's a fence there. If you
There
saw
is?
if you saw the picture she put up
I
facing.
couldn't remember what the
Yeah.
pictures were.
No, I'm sure. But
Okay.
facing west, there's a white vinyl fence there.
Okay. All right, that's it.
And
for
if they
my-
ever take it down, we probably would put one up anyway, because we hope to put in a pool eventually.
Oh, that's a good question. Where is your fence, your proposed fence on here?
I don't have one.
How are you intending to screen your AC units or any other equipment?
I can put a small 4-foot fence around them. Is that required there?
There are some screening requirements.
Okay.
Both within the district, and I think the city itself has some screening requirements. So we'll need to follow up on that.
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
something I haven't heard of, so.
Is there any other location besides that one unit at the end of the house facing the street, the entry?
No, and I don't know why.
You're rotated.
I don't know why he put it there, to be honest with you. I really would like to put it back in this corner.
Sorry, we don't
Or,
see
I'm
where
sorry,
you're pointing.
yeah, I got you. This corner right here. In that little indentation right there, that's where I would prefer to put it, so it's not seen.
So the potential for the AC unit being relocated.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so probably what you'll have to do is work with staff to either relocate it there, or if not, just make sure it's screened per code.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner?
I don't have any additional questions.
Commissioner Sutton?
Yes, I would like to address one more item with respect to that window wall. Could you please pull up your floor plan for that area of your dwelling, please? So
it's right here.
This window wall occurs entirely for that entire length. Now, I can understand wanting to open up the general living space of the house to the outside, the lanai, and eventually whatever's going to be happening out there in the backyard. Have other window types or door types been examined for that purpose, such as ganging a full run of French doors or using one of those pocket door systems where the leaves would stack upon one another in a pocket out of the way?
Yeah, I didn't know if sliding glass doors were allowed either. So this was something we found that we really liked, so we wanted to go with that.
Okay.
I didn't.
Because it is unique.
Yeah, I didn't want the only alternative to be two sets of double French doors. That's.
We know the party's always in the kitchen.
The point is to have it open without just having two doors, swinging out there open.
So do you have a system for that folding up kind of door that you're going to be using? Or is this
Yes.
going to be something that's kind of custom built?
No, it's, she showed it there briefly, but this company right here, it's called Glass in Motion. So this would typically be about 8 feet tall, and in our drawing, it's 12 feet wide. This is how it folds up right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually folds up to the ceiling.
If you see it anywhere, you normally see it like in a bistro situation on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
They would open up
Yeah.
the bistro to
They've
the
started,
outside.
you're right, and that's most of it's commercial, but they've started getting into residential type of products.
Do you have the ability to either alter or kind of customize what that glass panel portion is in order to make it look like it's kind of smaller portions?
That I don't know.
No.
I haven't gotten into that many details with the company about it.
Okay.
I have no further question.
Could you pull up your accessory structure elevations? So one of the comments that was brought up by staff was to remove the brick details from the accessory structure. Looks like there's still brick on there, and I just wanted to ask staff, was what your comment noting, was that removed, or maybe the drawings just haven't impacted?
They haven't been removed yet.
Okay.
And I purposely left them on there. I thought, again, the comment given to me was that the accessory structures don't typically have something like that. But in this situation, it's not a garage that's behind the house. It's to the side, kind of in the front, where you are going to see it. So I just thought, dressing it up, having it match the house a little bit better.
So it's not your intent to remove the brick from this accessory structure?
I would like not to, unless.
So what was the strategy then? So it looks like you have it on 3 corners for the brick, but you're not kind of keeping, like on this front elevation, you didn't put it near the door. What was your sort of strategy of where that brick was placed?
Because you can see that from the street, you can't see it back there by the door.
Okay. Can we look at would be the north elevation or facade of the main building? So that would be maybe the right?
The side elevation you're talking about?
Yes.
Where'd that go, Kim?
I believe it's the one with the porch area or lanai. And then first question for staff, is the small window that is kind of in that top right corner, is that the one that your comment was noting?
No, that was the one in the kitchen. So where I changed that to the 2 windows in the kitchen that are shorter than the rest on the house, there was one window there that was kind of moved to the side, which would have been over the sink. So that was changed.
Okay, because the comment mentions, and maybe this is just the way it's typed up is wrong, but it did mention that the short window on the north end, the front facade, my bad, I apologize.
Yeah, I read it wrong the first time, too.
Then can you pull up the wall sections real quick? And just because you kind of did a really good job of walking through what some of those materials are, but it's hard to read what those call-outs are on that wall section. Some of the photos that you presented and then some of the information on here is a little bit different, so I just wanted to run through and quickly, if you kind of walk through like what some of the underside of the porch ceilings are, the exposed portions for the roof, those kind of things.
The exposed portion of the roof is like a T111 board. It looks like tongue and groove.
Okay.
Just for that section of the eave. I don't think he put it on there, but the front porch and the rear porch ceilings will be a 1x6 tongue and groove cedar that would be stained or clear coated.
Okay.
And then the rest of it's just pretty standard with the lap siding and the trim around the windows.
So that ceiling you were mentioning would be like on the image on the left, it would replace that number 2 where it says weather-resistant ceiling board?
Yes, I'll have him change that.
And then do you have any additional details of maybe like the window sills, jambs, heads, kind of door pieces?
Yeah, that's on the
or-
front elevation. What we were looking at right there.
I mean, this is for the trim, but actually like in the section of those, how those windows kind of have the recess portion, or no?
No.
Okay.
So even though you don't have the wall section, what's the intent for how the windows will be placed in the wall?
So the intent is for, because the first floor is block and the second floor is frame, but I want them to all look like frame. So on the first floor, we're going to actually do them towards the outside, like a fin window. So it looks like it's in a frame wall instead of a block wall. So they'll all look exactly, they'll all be at the same area, I guess, to the front of the wall.
So they will have
The ones downstairs won't look recessed, with the ones upstairs looking like they're sitting out. They'll all look like they're sitting out, even with the wall.
that they'll look flush with the walls?
Correct. Just like in a wood frame wall. Is that not? I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, that's how those are on the second floor. Same as those. Typically in a wood frame wall, you have a fin window that just goes right to the outside of the wall.
Yeah.
So we were going to do that in the block wall as well, so they all look the same.
Are there any additional questions, either for staff or the applicant? All right, commissioners? No? All right, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
No, we're good.
Okay. At this point, we'll open the, or we're going to close public hearing, sorry. Commissioners will now discuss the case.
I struggle to see the historic reference for the garage-style glass doors at the back. And I do believe that the brick at the accessory structure gives it like a little bit of over-decoration for an accessory structure, but other than that, a lot of the details I think have really been nicely thought out.
I don't have a problem with the accessory structure, the way it's being detailed. They do make the point where it's to the fore and to the side. It's almost like a forecourt situation as you come on, as you enter onto the site. And the idea that the two of them really meld together and form those two sides of that forecourt, I think works well in that respect.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Is your microphone on, Steve?
Yes, it is.
I couldn't tell what you were saying. I'm sorry.
I should eat it.
I actually do feel like the brick is overkill on the accessory structure, and it would be much lovelier without it. I think the doors, as they're indicated on the elevation, will stand out enough to provide that presence of entry that I think you're looking for, considering the fact that it really is front forward, even though it's not physically, but because it will be one of the first things you see as you enter your property, right? When it comes to the vent on that small porch, even if you figure that you need that, think of some other way to vent, because it's just not historically accurate. And if we're looking for more of that historic accuracy, that really should just not be on a porch elevation and a porch end. And then in terms of the window at the back, I think we're struggling with it more because no one's ever come to us and said they wanted a horizontal. We have had people approach us with the full opening idea, and they're much easier these days to make them feel more historically appropriate because there are more companies that are doing them now, and they offer various materials and various ways to break them down. And when they're closed, they feel more historically appropriate. And that's why my colleague up here was asking that question, are there options for you to work with the manufacturer to start to address that feeling of appropriateness? So if that could be addressed, then that's something that, maybe we could reconsider. But for right now, what we were presented with just doesn't feel appropriate.
I agree. It's not the function of it opening up entirely. Like you said, you don't want to do just 2 doors. I don't think that that's at all what we're requiring, but like the lift function as well as the appearance doesn't, to me, connect at all to a historic structure or a historic district. I think it's very contemporary.
Yeah, I think however it opens, for personally, it does not matter, as long as it appears to match the rest of the building. If this was a historic building that maybe you were doing more of a modern contemporary addition onto or something, then I think that would fit. It just kind of seems like it's a little out of place. So if there's a way for you to find an alternative that matches but still meets kind of that ability to fully open, I think that'd be better direction.
I agree.
Yeah, something that needs a further coordination.
I think there's a lot of details and kind of consistency in the drawings that need to be picked up. So, you've mentioned a couple times where this either should have been removed or changed on the drawings, that I think just as you progress, make sure kind of, as you go through that those do get picked up and changed, just to make sure it actually does. And then the one thing I think is kind of that brick on the accessory structure. Originally, I would probably tend to agree that it seems a little bit of an overkill, but then as you kind of described it, that's what you are seeing first. Typically, those accessory structures in the district are behind there, which is why it's kind of secondary. For me, I think it could go either way in terms of if you keep it or not, so that might just be a further discussion of what we want along the board.
For me, it's more than just overkill. It's really, it's not consistent with an accessory structure you would see with this style. Brick piers and columns belong on porch columns, right? And piers we would expect for the foundation. But when you have an accessory structure, they often won't have that repeated. The garage doors are a way to add some aesthetic appeal, and that's often done. You'll see that in the nicer homes. But those brick corner pieces, especially when it returns on the end facing the other property where they have that easement allowance, it seems like it's really just, I hate to say it, pasted on. So it just feels out of place. It's foreign to what you would expect for an accessory structure with this style.
Yeah, I appreciate the thought behind it, and I love that the the accessory structure was treated with as much care as the primary structure, and like the garage doors are beautiful. The remainder of the structure, it looks wonderful, like you want to drive toward it. I just don't know that the bricks are necessary or like giving it added value.
When we were designing, and I just want to say this and stop. When we're designing, we often have to ask our fellow colleagues to come in and help us edit it. It's just like writing a paper. Sometimes we throw all our ideas at it, and we just need to peel a few away, and then it'll just read beautifully. And I think that's where you're at with this particular accessory structure. It's really a nice structure. I just feel like you could live without the brick and be very happy with it. We can't take any more evidence in.
Okay. So, we did mention kind of the additional details, the material palettes, the cut sheets, the removal or redesign of that porch vent, the board and batten being changed to the shaker. There's, as I mentioned, there's some drawings in terms of like that front door at making sure that transom is added up on there. So just making sure that the drawings match what was kind of discussed tonight. The screening or the relocation of that AC or any additional equipment. The brick on the accessory structure if we decide that to move. And then the biggest item is probably that folding glass wall door portion. Is there any other items that we want to discuss?
Yes, there's two more. There's the final selection and location for exterior lighting and door hardware. Those have been, those are not resolved at this point in time.
I agree, that's my understanding.
And would a commissioner like to make a motion? Or is ready to make a motion, or do we need to continue to discuss?
I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 21-27 for the property located at 2820 North Central Court with the following conditions: that the door hardware and lighting locations and specifications be approved by staff, that the drawings are coordinated per the presentation this evening, that the material palette is approved by staff, that the vent at the right elevation porch is removed if not required, that the board and batten to be reselected with a more style-appropriate material, that the exterior equipment location and screening is approved by staff, and that an alternate specification is approved by staff for the garage-style door to the exterior. The specification has a more historic reference. Because based upon the finding of fact, the project is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines for the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that the scale, massing, and proportion, that the trim detail, facade proportions, and roof forms are consistent with the guidelines.
I second the motion.
And then before, I know that was a lot, you probably will get a record of it, but did you understand the conditions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Meeting is adjourned.
Next.